I never thought I'd be that guy, someone caught in the middle of a betrayal so deep it felt like my entire world was collapsing. It started as a normal day, the kind where I was just finishing up work, my mind already drifting towards the weekend plans I'd made with her. We were supposed to be getting married in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. We talked about everything. Our future, the house, that trip to Italy we kept talking about. And yet deep down, I always felt there was something just a little off. Not enough to ruin everything, but enough to make my gut tighten whenever I looked at her. Her name was Lisa. Beautiful, smart, the kind of woman everyone admired. She had this laugh that made me forget the world around us. We met 5 years ago, and from the start I knew she was the one. Or so I thought. We moved in together after 2 years, and I never had reason to doubt her. She was perfect, at work, at home, with her friends. I was always proud to stand by her side. But I guess no matter how perfect someone looks on the surface, that's often just the mask they wear. I first noticed the signs a couple of days before I found the messages. It was small stuff, her phone ringing at odd hours, her changing her passwords without telling me, but nothing I could pin down. Still, it gnawed at me. I kept telling myself I was paranoid. Maybe I was just overthinking. Still, I'd start catching her in little lies, and I'd see her glance away too quickly, like she was hiding something. Then one night I came home early from work, unexpected. I'd forgotten my phone in the car, so I was unlocking the door when I saw her sitting at our kitchen table, her journal open in front of her. She was scribbling furiously, her brow furrowed. I paused, surprised, and then I saw it. The journal was open to a page with a message she hadn't erased. "Tonight. I can't wait to see you again. You're everything I've been dreaming of." My stomach sank. I froze. That's when I saw a small slip of paper tucked into the pages. A handwritten note, half torn, half hidden behind the cover. "Meet me at the park behind the old mill at midnight. Don't tell anyone." The handwriting was familiar, but I couldn't place it until I looked closer. It wasn't just a note. It was proof that she was lying to me about her whereabouts. I felt everything inside me tighten, anger, confusion, a sick sense of betrayal. Here I was, about to marry someone who was sneaking around with my best friend. My heart was pounding so loud I thought the walls might shake. I stepped back quietly, clutching the journal so hard my knuckles went white. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. How many times had I missed the signs? How many times had I brushed off those little gut feelings? I needed a plan. I knew I couldn't confront her without some solid evidence. So I took the journal, hid it in my coat pocket, and left the house without a word. I could feel the cold metal of the keys digging into my palm as I walked away, my mind racing. I had to see for myself if she was really meeting him. I had to know the truth. And once I did, I'd decide what to do. That night I sat in my car, parked a block away from the park, watching. Her figure appeared in the shadows, her face barely visible under the street lamp. She looked nervous, glancing around. My mind was a hurricane. Part of me wanted to run straight in and stop whatever was happening. Part of me wanted to back out, keep everything the lie I'd told myself it was. But I stayed still, watching her walk toward the old mill, her figure tense and quick. And that's when I saw him. My best friend, Jake. Tall, broad-shouldered, the guy I'd trusted with everything. He stepped out from the shadows, wrapping her in his arms. I felt my stomach heave. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms, but I didn't move. I just watched. I saw her press her face into his chest, whispering something I couldn't hear, and I felt the world tilt beneath me. I didn't need more. I knew enough. I'd caught her red-handed, her betrayal laid bare. My mind spun with fury and heartbreak, but I also knew I'd get revenge. She'd betrayed me, my best friend was complicit, and I'd make damn sure they paid in their own way. The next steps were clear, but I kept my composure for now. I had to plan carefully, and I had to act fast. When I drove away, I felt numb, like I'd lost a part of myself. My hands trembled, but I kept my face cold. I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible, and I wasn't about to let it slide. I just had to decide how to make her regret it, how to make that betrayal hurt as badly as it had just now. And I knew I wouldn't stop until I did. The following days felt like living in a fog. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face pressed against his, heard the muffled whispers from that night. The ache in my chest was a constant gnaw, a dull roar of betrayal that refused to fade. I couldn't focus at work. My hands trembled every time I looked at my phone, afraid she'd text or call, trying to explain or deny. But there was nothing to say, only the undeniable truth I had seen with my own eyes. I didn't tell anyone yet. I had to be careful. If I was going to do something, it had to be precise. I needed leverage, something irrefutable. I decided to go through her things, find more proof, and figure out what her next move was. It was sick, I know, invading her privacy, but I was desperate. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. That afternoon, I waited until she was out of the house for a meeting. The house was eerily silent, every creak and whisper feeling amplified. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't care less. I slipped inside her bedroom and started rummaging through her drawers, her journal still tucked in my pocket. I found her laptop in her purse, unlocked it with a little sweat on my palms. I needed to see everything, messages, emails, the whole sordid mess. Scrolling through her messages, I saw conversations with Jake. Flirty, intimate, full of promises. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one read, and another. "You're the only thing I think about." My stomach twisted. I felt bile rising. It was worse than I expected. It wasn't just a one-time thing. They'd been sneaking around for months. I pulled out her phone, hesitating, but what I really wanted was more than just texts. I wanted to know if there was anything else. Photos, plans, maybe even something that could send her over the edge. I unlocked her photo gallery and shit. There were pictures of her and Jake, close, too personal, caught in moments that proved they'd been playing with fire for a long time. I saved a few photos, then turned off her laptop, my hand trembling. I was angry, no, furious, and I knew I had to keep my cool. I left her journal on the bed, knowing I'd come back for it later. This was enough to confirm what I already suspected. She'd been lying for months, cheating, sneaking around behind my back. That's when I realized my plan for revenge needed to be more calculated. I couldn't just storm in and confront her blindly. I had to hit her where it hurt, in her weakest spot. I made a phone call that evening to my lawyer. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to get advice. I knew I'd need legal backing when I finally decided to act. Meanwhile, I kept the evidence close, hiding it in a safe spot where she wouldn't find it. I also decided to get a private investigator involved. I wanted the full picture. Who else knew if there were more women or if she'd been planning to leave me for good? That night I sat on my porch, staring at the dark sky, feeling hollow. My mind kept replaying what I'd seen, what I'd discovered. I clenched my fists so tight that my nails left marks on my palms. This wasn't just heartbreak, it was war. I knew I couldn't let her get away with it, not without consequences. The worst part, the sense that I had trusted her blindly and she'd shattered that trust into 1,000 pieces. My stomach twisted when I thought about confronting her face to face. I wanted to scream at her, tell her how much I despised her now, how betrayed I felt. But I knew that would only give her the upper hand. No, I had to be patient, cold, and calculated. And then there was Jake, my best friend. The person I'd confided in, gone to for advice, shared my hopes with, and now it felt like he'd betrayed everything we stood for. I had to decide how far I was willing to go with this. I wasn't the kind of guy who liked drama or revenge for its own sake, but this was different. Someone had to pay for this kind of treachery. I stood up, feeling a surge of resolve. Tomorrow I would take the next step. Whatever that was, I'd be ready. I could feel my jaw tighten as I clenched my teeth. I promised myself one thing: she'd regret the day she ever crossed me. And Jake, well, he'd get what was coming. Because in my world, betrayal like this didn't just go unpunished. It was scorched, erased, and left in the ash. I just had to figure out how to do it right. As I headed back into the house, I caught the faintest sound of her keys jangling on the table. The house was still quiet, but I knew she'd be back soon. I had to decide whether to wait, confront, or keep digging. Either way, I was closer than ever to exposing everything and starting the process of reclaiming what was mine. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. My stomach was tied in knots, and every sound in the house felt magnified, every creak, every distant car passing by. I knew I had to move fast. I couldn't let her suspect I was onto her. I kept my face blank when I saw her come down the stairs, pretending everything was normal. Inside, my mind was racing through the steps I needed to take. I decided I'd set the trap that night. I had enough evidence, photos, her journal, the messages, and I knew she was planning to stay out late again. I needed her to be gone long enough for me to execute my plan without her knowing. I called the investigator I'd hired and asked him to be at the park behind the mill that night, just in case I needed his backup. I'd also arranged for a friend I trusted to be nearby, ready to record or intervene if things got messy. I kept her busy during the day, pretending everything was fine. I asked her about her evening plans, acted like I didn't know what she'd been up to. She was nervous, fidgeting, avoiding eye contact. I wanted to say something to throw her off, but I kept quiet. I knew I had to play it cool to let her make the first move. By late afternoon, I was pacing the house, trying to hold my nerves. When she finally left around 8 p.m., I moved fast. I grabbed my phone, my camera, and the evidence I'd hidden. I slipped into my car, parked a few blocks away, and watched her leave in her car. She looked tense but determined, like she was just going out for a quick dinner. I felt my stomach tighten again. This was it. The park was deserted, just rustling leaves and distant sounds of traffic. I had a clear view of the old mill from my vantage point. The air was thick with humidity, and the only light came from a flickering street lamp. I could see her approaching from the shadows, her face lit only by the dim glow of the lamp. She looked around nervously, and I clenched my fists. Her steps hesitated, then she finally moved toward the old structure. Suddenly, I saw Jake's figure emerge from the darkness. My heart stopped. I recognized him immediately. Tall, broad-shouldered, with that familiar confident swagger. He stepped closer to her, wrapping her in a tight embrace. I held my breath, clutching my camera. I was ready to record everything, to have proof of their betrayal. Their whispered words carried in the still night. She pressed her face into his chest, and he stroked her hair. The scene was surreal, like witnessing a crime I'd never thought I'd see in real life. They parted briefly, just enough for her to glance around nervously, then she leaned in again. I saw her hand reach into her pocket, and for a second I thought she might pull out something to deny everything. But no. She simply caressed his face, whispering something I couldn't make out. I kept recording, heart pounding so loudly I thought I'd lose my mind. Then Jake leaned in, kissing her softly. My blood ran cold. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The sight of it burned in my eyes, my best friend, the woman I loved, all caught in a moment of pure betrayal. I watched as she whispered, and he nodded. They parted ways, and she turned back toward the shadows, disappearing from my view. I stayed frozen, recording every second, my mind racing. When I finally turned off the camera, I knew I had all I needed. The evidence was irrefutable. I watched her get into her car and drive off, leaving Jake standing alone in the dark. I stayed for a moment longer, feeling the weight of everything I'd just seen. I'd caught her red-handed, and I had it all on footage. This was the end of the line. Driving back home, I felt a strange mix of relief and fury. Relief because I finally had proof, and fury because I realized how badly I'd been played. My trust, my love, all shattered by two people I thought cared about me. I had to decide my next move, how to confront her, how to make her understand that I knew everything. My gut told me she'd try to lie her way out, deny everything, but I wasn't in the mood for her games anymore. When I got home, I sat in the dark, staring at the footage on my phone. My hands clenched around the device, trembling with rage. I knew I was close to the breaking point. The only thing left was to plan the confrontation, but I already knew what I had to say. It was the moment of truth. No more hiding, no more pretending. I was ready to make her face the consequences of her actions. And as I looked at the files, I realized one thing. Once I stepped into that room to tell her everything, there was no going back. This wasn't just about a broken heart anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity from the ashes of betrayal. And I was done waiting. The game was about to change. That night's sleep was a distant memory. My mind kept replaying the footage, her face, Jake's kiss. Every detail burned into my brain like a scar. I felt my jaw tighten whenever I thought of her betrayal. I knew I'd have to confront her soon, but I also knew I couldn't do it cold, not without preparation. I needed to be calm, calculated, and above all, in control. In the early hours of the morning, I finally made my move. I got the evidence on my phone, double-checked it was clear, then set it aside. I wanted her to see everything at once, to understand just how deeply she'd screwed up. I also packed a small bag, just in case I needed to leave quickly, and I grabbed the keys to the house, which I decided to take back once she left. Around sunrise, I called her. Her voice was groggy when she answered, like she'd just woken up. I kept my tone composed but icy. "We need to talk," I said, "about everything." She hesitated, then muttered, "What are you talking about?" "I know about the messages, about the meetings, about Jake." I pressed send on the video and her voice caught in her throat as she saw the scene I'd recorded in the park. Her face went pale, then flushed with anger and panic. "Where did you get that?" She spat, voice trembling. "Don't matter," I said. "I've had enough of your lies, we're done." She tried to deny it, of course. "You're crazy, it's not what it looks like." "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like," I shot back. "You've been cheating on me for months and Jake, my best friend, was right there with you. You lied your way through everything. I've got the proof, and I'm not interested in any more lies." There was silence on the other end, only her ragged breathing. I let it hang in the air. This was the moment she realized I wasn't going to let her get away with this. "I want you to pack your things," I said, "because I'm taking back my house, and don't bother calling me again. I'll be at a hotel for a while." She finally shouted, "You're overreacting, you're just jealous." "Jealous?" I barked. "No, I'm furious. You crossed every line there was. You and Jake, two people I trusted, turned my life into a joke. But I'm done playing your game." I ended the call, hearing her scream something back, but I didn't care. My stomach tightened with a weird mix of relief and rage. I started packing the essentials, every movement deliberate. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to act like I was in control. I knew this was just the beginning. I'd take my house back and then I'd decide what came next. I wasn't just going to let her walk away after everything she'd done. By the time she arrived home, probably furious, probably planning her next move, I was already gone. I left the keys on the table, tucked the evidence into my bag, and walked out the door. I headed to the hotel I'd booked earlier, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. Every step was heavy, like I was dragging the weight of betrayal behind me. Sitting in the hotel room, I opened my laptop to review the footage one last time. It confirmed everything. Her lies, her sneaking around, her betrayal. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of clarity. I knew what I had to do next. That woman, that so-called wife, had no idea what was coming. But I also realized something else. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my self-respect, my dignity. I had been played for a fool, and now I was going to make damn sure she paid the price for it. I wasn't going to sit around feeling sorry for myself anymore. No, I was ready to fight back, to take control of the wreckage she'd left behind. The plan was simple but effective. I'd file for divorce immediately, get everything I deserved, and make her realize she lost more than just me. I'd cut her out of my life completely. But there was one thing I also knew: I couldn't do it alone. I'd need my lawyer, maybe some help from someone I trusted, because betrayal like this cut deep, and getting revenge was the only way I could feel some sense of justice. I looked out the window at the city waking up, the sun casting long shadows over the streets. I took a deep breath and told myself, enough is enough. Tomorrow, I'd start closing the chapter on her. I'd take back my life, even if it meant burning everything to the ground first. And I'd make sure she remembered the day her lies finally caught up with her. The divorce papers were filed that morning. I didn't want her to have any illusions about my intentions. I wanted this over and done with as quickly and cleanly as possible. I sat in that hotel room, staring at the screen, watching the process unfold. Just a few signatures and she'd be out of my life forever. But even as I clicked through the legal steps, I knew this was just the surface. The real work was in making her feel what she'd made me feel: betrayed, humiliated, powerless. That afternoon, I met with my lawyer. We went over everything: the evidence, our strategy, the best way to ensure she wouldn't wiggle out of this. I kept my tone cold, detached. I was done playing nice. "I want everything," I told him. "The house, the savings, anything she's got. I want her to see that betrayal has consequences, and I want her to know I'm serious." He nodded, his expression calm but firm. "We'll get it all, and I'd recommend you keep your distance for now. Don't give her any reason to spin this. Stay firm. I agreed. I was already planning my next move. I knew I couldn't just disappear into the night. She'd come looking for explanations, excuses, or maybe even revenge. No, I had to make her understand that I was done, finished with her lies. I'd make her regret ever crossing me. That evening I went back to the house to pick up a few things. My stomach twisted when I stepped inside, an echo of all the memories we'd made here. But now every corner felt like a prison. I saw her stuff still scattered around, her scent lingering in the air. I felt a bitter anger rise. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built together? I grabbed the essentials, my clothes, some personal items, and then I looked around one last time. I slipped the evidence from my bag, the photos, the journal pages into a folder. I knew I'd need it for the final blow, for her to understand that this wasn't just some reckless fling. It was a full-blown betrayal. Before leaving, I paused at the doorway, taking a deep breath. I couldn't let her see me in pain. Instead, I put on a mask of indifference. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to see that I was moving on, without her. Driving away, I felt a strange mixture of relief and cold resolve. I was finally taking control. The house, her lies, her betrayal, they all belonged to the past now. I'd start fresh, rebuild from the ashes she'd left. But I knew I wouldn't rest until she comprehended the gravity of what she'd done. The next day, I sat down with my lawyer again. We drafted the final paperwork and I signed my name with a steady hand. I was officially done. It was time to send her the message she'd never forget. I made the call that would deliver the final blow, an email with all the evidence attached, a clear declaration that I knew everything and her reign of lies was over. As I pressed send, I felt a strange calm settle over me. No more hiding, no more pretending. I was finally free from the chaos she'd brought into my life. That was the moment I realized I would never let her manipulate me again. She had lost everything, the love, the trust, the friendship, and now I'd take everything else she tried to claim. Walking away from that house, with the evidence in my hand and my future ahead, I knew this was only the beginning. The pain would fade, but the lessons would stay. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But I was stronger than her lies. From here on out, I was rebuilding my life piece by piece on my own terms. And no matter what, I'd never let someone do that to me again. Sometimes, the only way to heal is to burn everything to the ground first. And that's exactly what I did. The day I handed over the keys to the house was the day I finally took back my life. I arrived early, my hands steady, clutching the folder with all the evidence. The photos, the journal pages, everything that proved her lies. I knocked on the door knowing she'd be there soon, probably expecting some kind of plea or last-minute attempt at saving her face, but I didn't give her the chance. I just walked in, placed the folder on the table, and looked her straight in the eyes. "You lied," I said evenly. "You cheated, you betrayed everything we had, and I have the proof to show everyone what you're really like." She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. "No more excuses, no more lies. I've had enough of this. The truth is out and I'm done playing your game." With that, I handed her the folder. Her face went pale, then flushed again as she stared at the mountain of evidence. I saw her hands tremble as she reached out, but I stepped back. I was done. No more tears, no more pleading, just a final, clear mark that her lies had been exposed. "I want my keys," I said, voice cold. "And I want you to leave my life. I'll be filing for divorce today. Don't bother trying to contact me." "This is over," she looked like she was about to scream, but nothing came out. Instead, she just nodded, defeated, knowing it was finally the end. I turned and walked out the door, my heart pounding with relief and a strange sense of liberation. I'd spent so long feeling like a fool, but now I was finally in control of the wreckage. Driving away from that house, I felt lighter than I had in months. The betrayal, the lies, it was all behind me now. The only thing left was to rebuild. I promised myself I wouldn't let her or Jake destroy me any longer. I'd start fresh in a new place with new boundaries. I'd learned who to trust and, more importantly, who to walk away from. At the hotel that night, I sat alone in the quiet, looking at the evidence one last time. My fingers trembling slightly, I knew this was the end of the chapter, the final act of my revenge. I'd made her pay for her lies, for her betrayal, and I'd freed myself from the nightmare she'd created. The truth had set me free, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away again. As I closed my laptop, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had no more apologies to give, no more secrets to hide. I'd done what I needed to do, and I could finally start healing. It was time to rebuild from the ashes of betrayal, stronger and more cautious than ever. That's when I realized something crucial. Sometimes, the only way to survive heartbreak is to burn everything down first. And in doing so, you find your own strength. I'd lost a woman I loved, but I found myself again, finally free, finally done with the lies. And I knew that from this moment on, I'd never let anyone betray me that way again.